Welcome, guys, to How the Frack We Got Here, a show that takes the news and events of the week and try to make sense out of it all. I'm your host, the most Will Buchanan, and on this show, we simply are all about the facts. There are plenty of news stations out there that simply want to do anything short but inform you. Here at How the Frack We Got Here, that's all we believe in. We go up to the left, we go up to the right, we go up to the middle of independence. We go up to all sides because there's more than one side of a story to everything. And you need to know it all in order to actually formulate your own opinion. And that's what we try to do here at How the Frack We Got Here. Thanks for listening, and hold on. It's going to be fun.
All right, guys. Today is July the 5th, 2023, and this is How the Frack We Got Here. I'm host of most Will Buchanan on How the Frack We Got Here. We do take the events of the week and try to make sense of it all. Before we do get started, guys, let you know that we do try to be a reputable news source, which means that all the sources that we do derive from are reputable, can be cited, not crazy stuff like Newsmax or Fox News. At the same time, we do try to watch our language, even though words do fly. And at the same time, there might be things that might be shown that might be too young, that might be too intense for younger viewers. But viewer discretion is advised. Aside from that, welcome. So, how do we start with this? How do we actually start with this, guys? Well, there's no other way I can say this, that unfortunately in Congress, there's always, and I mean always, another day, another leak of classified information. I wonder how this is going to go.
The 21-year-old U.S. National Air Guardsman accused of posting classified documents online has been formally indicted. Jack Teixeira is facing 6 counts of willful retention and transmission of classified information related to national defense. He was arrested and charged under the Espionage Act in April. The Justice Department says Teixeira took photos of documents marked secret and top secret from military base and posted them online. He has not yet entered a formal plea and remains in federal custody.
Now, what's crazy about that, guys, is that how many times, really and truly, have we heard this? That people that are in certain positions really shouldn't be giving away secrets. In this case, he was warned repeatedly, according to the prosecutors, about his mishandling of classified documents. I'm just going to throw something out here. If you've been warned repeatedly about how you handle very sensitive documents, maybe we shouldn't have in that spot. At the same time, it just makes you wonder, really and truly. I mean, with former failure-in-chief President Trump having boatloads of documents, President Biden having documents when he was vice president, and Mike Pence having documents. Now, don't get me wrong, I get it. Sometimes you make a mistake, like leaving classified documents in your garage. But hey, you call it, you say, hey, this happened. Hey, you go through investigation. No harm, no foul. But this is starting to become a very, very, very disturbing trend when it comes to our national security, because the people that we decide to protect or believe they have enough clearance, I'm not saying it's all of them, but it seems that at least one or two starts getting through the cracks that shouldn't be able to. And even more so, what does that say about our vetting process? Because, a guy like me, because I always say when I used to go for IT, they used to have these things called security clearances. And your boy didn't do well with finances. So you always wonder, it's like, would they see me as a risk because of my inconsistencies in my financial literacy? I consumed they did, so I never applied for those type of jobs. But it makes you wonder, if I myself, under threat of jail, would ever give away the nation's secrets, I wouldn't. Just because the fact of the matter is, nobody wants to go to jail, especially when you're a traitor, or at least violating the Espionage Act, or in this case, future Trump. But again, we'll see. The Supreme Court has gotten a lot of attention lately, and rightly should. Number one, that the Supreme Court needs to answer to somebody. That for it to be the highest court of the land, that there's ethics involved, and that some of their Supreme Court justices, Clarence Thomas, just to name at least one, Brett Kavanaugh, Amy Coney Barrett. And yes, if you're wondering about naming all the conservatives, yes, because there seems to be a correlation with the fact that when you're a Supreme Court justice, it's almost like you answer to no one. It's like, yes, you are on the highest court in the land. That is true, but you still have to answer somebody. It's a little thing called checks and balances. But that's just one of the many things the Supreme Court have decided over the last couple of weeks But this case, and I always wonder how cases like this get to the Supreme Court. I really and truly do. Because in this case, a web designer decided to take this to the Supreme Court because they refused to do work for a same-sex couple. And yet I'm asking the same question. How does a case like this get to the Supreme Court?
So much of this litigation is in a wedding context, but okay, I'll roll with it. So I guess the baker is speaking. I guess the website designer, your client, is speaking. Presumably the florist is speaking, the photographer. What about the stagehand? What about the wedding singer? What about all those ancillary businesses that go into it? Are they all offering speech, or aren't they just there doing a job like they would do for any other couple?
If they're doing a job and there's not speech involved, then the non-discrimination principles apply, and the First Amendment does not in the free speech context. And so I think you're overcomplicating it. As you open, the court's decision, the majority decision by Justice Gorsuch is clear. There are clear tests in the law as to when speech is involved. We know when speech is involved. And here we have the written printed word. So there's no question that speech is involved. In terms of Justice Sotomayor's dissent, as the majority said, she's litigating a case that wasn't even before the court and on entirely different facts. So again, like you said, Americans should read the decision and decide for themselves.
Okay, I'm in my hypothetical, counselor, I'm an atheist, and I'm in one of these ancillary businesses. And when couples get together in a non-religious environment or ceremony, I'm going to provide my services. But wait a minute, this is a religious wedding. I don't want a part of that. Is that okay?
Well, I'm not sure what your atheist is doing. And so what matters is, are they being asked to...
I'm a florist, I'm a photographer, I'm a web designer, or I'm a baker. But I'm an atheist, and I'm only going to provide these services for fellow atheists, even though I hold myself out to the public.
It's about what the speech is that's being requested. Lori has always made distinctions based on what the message is that she's being asked to give voice to, and that's a critical distinction that the court reaffirmed. The test has always been whether the speaker's message is affected by what the government wants them to say. And that's the test that will continue to apply. The court didn't create new law. They just applied it in a cultural moment where some disagree with Lori's message. And it's important that we stick to protecting freedom, because political and cultural winds shift. And if the government can compel Lori, it can compel the LGBT website designer as well. We all need to remember that.
This is a law school dream, this case. Lori, a final one for you. Think of the pharmacist called upon to fill a prescription for birth control who has a religious objection to doing so. I would say, hey, you chose to be a pharmacist. And if you have trouble providing this service, maybe this is not a gig for you. What about someone who similarly says, if you want to be a web designer, you got to serve everybody, and your religion can't come into it? You get the final word.
My final word is this: I create speech for a living. When speech is involved, speech should be protected. This protects not just me, the LGBT website designer, the Jewish calligrapher, the Democrat speechwriter, the pro-life photographer. We all benefit from the court's ruling yesterday.
Well, forgive my language, but that's a crock of shit. If this is not a case of white girl pretty privilege, Jesus, this is why I ask this question all the time. How do cases like this make the Supreme Court? For all those that don't know, a web designer has refused to work with a same-sex couple. And yet somehow this became a case to where this needed to go to the Supreme Court. Let me tell you something. Every business has the right to refuse service. However, Business and Economics 101 tells you all the time, if business is knocking you, take it. It makes me like, well, it goes against my religion. If I'm a web designer that's running my own business, I am getting every effing customer I can get. Same-sex couples, come along. Heterosexual couples, come along. Jewish people, Jamaican people, I don't give a crap. It's money, it's income, it's building a clientele. Business 101 tells you not to kill your revenue stream, which is exactly what this woman did here, but she wanted to claim religion. It's just against my religion. And the CNN anchor does brilliantly, because what this sets is I like to call the Kim Davis paradox. Now, you remember Kim Davis? Remember the Kentucky county clerk that refused to serve same-sex marriages to couples? She cited her religion. And just like that anchor said in his example, if you're a farmer going to a pharmacy, say you're a pharmacist at a pharmacy and someone is getting birth control, will you give it to them, or you think that it violates your religious tendencies? If you said yes, don't be a pharmacist, because there's whether you're just in business in general, if you work at a business that isn't a church, in my opinion, if you work at a church, then let's just be honest, y'all are already BSing because you call yourself a nonprofit, but you still taking money. But that's neither here nor there. But any other spot where you're serving the general public, you are pretty much Switzerland. You're neutral. You want all the business you can get. That's like I said, if I'm a baker and a same-sex couple says we want a wedding cake, what do you want? How you want it styled? You want 3 layers? You want 4 layers? You want velvet? You want chocolate? What you want? Because that's going to be me. Because in my case, it's going to be like, what do you need? Because I will facilitate it for you. That's how I am. Because again, that's my business. The fact that you have her lawyer, which by the way is doing a great job of dancing around it, well, it's protecting all our freedoms of speech. Here's the one thing in business that a lot of people don't get. That as much as you try to bring back church and state, you cannot put religion and business together. The two don't work with each other because business has no religious morals. It doesn't. There are no religious morals in business because every customer, the only moral in business is that a paying customer is a served customer. That's it. That is it. That is the only rule in business. A paying customer is a served customer, and that's it. But you have individuals like her who swear up and down that their religious rights are being violated. Here's the thing, honey. Your religious rights cannot be violated if you are simply running a business that is advertised for goods and services that people may want to pay you for. And I don't care how successful I get in life. If my business is booming and folks want to jump in on it, then come on. Well, Will, what if you have people that you don't like want things from you? If they're paying, they get what they want. Because take the business or people aspect out of your head. If you're running a business, you need income. If you don't want to work for somebody else, you want to work for yourself, guess what? You need clients. Clients bring you income. That's how it works. At the same time, religious morals have no place in business. But if you want to be a Christian baker, then understand that your entire clientele is going to be exactly what you reflect. Christians. If you want to be one of these religious businesses, then I hope your clientele is as wide and as long as the day is great. Because you're going to have a hard time, because Business 101 will teach you, do not knock off your customer base for religion. Religion only pays preachers and those in the offices that avoid the taxes. Yes, I said it. Moving right along, guys, there's another story again, because this is the reason why I say, much like the Supreme Court, law enforcement has to be held accountable too. Because this couple was leaving a store, was accused of theft. The man was being detained. His wife was recording, and now his wife was being detained for simply recording. And yet they wonder why minorities don't trust law enforcement.
Hughes County Sheriff's Department is investigating 2 of its deputies after body camera footage showed a woman being thrown to the ground.
Yeah, the department says the officers were attempting to detain a couple suspected of robbing a grocery store. While the man was being handcuffed, the woman recorded the video. A warning, this video does show some concerning content.
I'm telling you, tell a police over here. No, you can't touch me. You can't touch me. Get down on the ground. What are you? Get on the ground. It's already on YouTube. Stop. Live. I don't give a stop. Stop. You're gonna get punched in the face. You punch me and you're gonna get sued too. You already got sued. I got it on camera. Stop.
Turn
got
around.
It on camera. Get your neck off my. I can't breathe.
Hey, we're in a fight at the
I
Wilco.
can't breathe. There's no fight. You threw me down to the ground. Stop manhandling me. I didn't do nothing. You threw me down. Call the commander. Call the commander.
Hands behind
Call
your
the
back.
commander. Stop twisting my arm.
Put your hands behind your back.
The couple were cited and released, although it's not clear what they were cited for. Authorities say that both deputies have been reassigned from field duty pending this investigation.
And more than likely in witness protection. But yeah, because the crazy part about this is all you saw was the one recording. And yet the officer decided to detain her. The sheriff decided to detain her. And for no reason. So yeah, they were released and cited, although no reason why. And those very same deputies right now have better protection than most people of color. Because that's how it usually is. See, whenever law enforcement goes well beyond their powers, well beyond their duties, then all of a sudden it's like, oh crap, we need to hold them accountable. But let's hide them first. Now I get the whole thing of safety, but let's be honest, nobody has ever went to that extreme to go looking for these officers because, to exert violence on them when they didn't see it coming. I mean, that would be just completely wrong. And it's not like, it's not like, again, people of color, I mean, it's one of those things where that's the fear. They don't want violence. They don't want the exact same violence or that level of violence to happen to them the same way they executed on other people. And I always found that interesting. So you put them on reassignment when you really should put them on suspension, because no one's asking the sheriff, why did you detain the woman for simply recording you? If you have body cams on and you're doing your job, then you have nothing to worry about, which is the one thing we've always told law enforcement about these body cams. If you're doing nothing wrong, you have nothing to worry about. Isn't that the same thing you tell us? Oh, if you didn't do nothing wrong, you have nothing to worry about. If you haven't done nothing wrong, you have no problem telling me. If you didn't do anything wrong, you should have no problem with me searching your car. The same thing law enforcement tells us is the same thing I say about body cameras. If a person is recording you and you have a body cam on, I'm all for it. Go ahead, give them a good side, give them a badge number if I'm law enforcement, because I have nothing to hide. But it's amazing to those that do wear the badge that when they are recorded, that you just don't want to be the next officer canceled, because you don't want to admit that maybe there are just some of y'all in that group of law enforcement that really don't need to be there at all. Just saying. But yeah, we're going to follow that story because I guarantee there's going to be a lawsuit coming, because them couples are going to wind up suing the county and the state, and rightfully they should. But we'll follow that story as it comes along. Another story, unfortunately, guys, over the July 4th with hot dogs, hamburgers, ribs, and massive fireworks. Unfortunately, there has been another mass shooting.
In with that deadly mass shooting in Philadelphia that killed 5 men and wounded 2 children. Just this morning, the 40-year-old suspect was arraigned in criminal court. He has now officially been charged with 11 counts, including murder, aggravated assault, reckless endangerment, and weapons charges.
But today, we want to focus on the victims. Here are the faces and the names of the 5 men we lost Monday night to senseless gun violence. They're 15-year-old Dajuan Brown, 20-year-old Lashad Merritt, 29-year-old Damar Stanton, 31-year-old Joseph Wama, and 59-year-old Ralph Morales. Police say they had each been shot multiple times.
This country needs to re-examine its conscience and find out how to get guns out of dangerous people's hands. A person walking down a city street with an AR-style rifle and shooting randomly at people while wearing a bulletproof vest with multiple magazines is a disgraceful but all too common situation in America.
Rahima Ellis joins us now live, our NBC News correspondent. Rahima, we're talking about babies, a 15-year-old. Tell us more about the victims. What do we know about them from police, and what are their families saying?
One of the things, Morgan, that we're hearing from police is that these victims all lived in the same community. They were all within a few blocks of one another. And in fact, what we're finding out now, it appears that the suspect also lived in this community. One of the parents has talked with us, and that is a parent of the 15-year-old victim who was killed. That is DeJuan Brown. He spoke with our NBC affiliate WC. She spoke with our NBC affiliate WCAU, and saying that her son was on his way to the corner store and tried to help a friend who was injured once those shots were fired. Listen to what she said about her child.
There was no way you could meet DeJuan, have a conversation with him, and not fall in love with him. He lost his life trying to, doing a selfless act, and that's how he was when he was here.
You can see on her face this the smile when she speaks about her son, and the pain also that she expressed, saying that she hopes that if the suspect is the person who is responsible for this, she wants that person to be held accountable to the full extent of the law and to never get out of prison.
Rahima, we know the suspect was arraigned in Philadelphia criminal court this morning. What else have you learned about him and these charges he's now facing?
One of the things that we know is that he appeared in court via a closed circuit camera. A public defender was appointed for this suspect, a 40-year-old man. And we also know that he's being held without bail, while bail was set at $7.5 million. Authorities say that there's no bail that's going to be allowed. This person is not going to be allowed to get out from behind bars until there is a trial in this case.
All right.
And that's sad. It's sad that, again, we've had, I call it Grill Day. 4th of July really means nothing to Black folks except for a day to be off work and grilling. But for those that might see it as independence, well, good for them. But on that day, we've had another mass shooting, another loss of life. There is really no other way to say this. Now, trust me, as the day is long, more is going to come out about this person. Let's just be honest. A lot more is going to come out about this person. A lot more is going to come out about the shooter. It is going to be interesting to see what they say about him. But again, I'm just going to be looking for the key terms. I'm like, how did he get firearms? Because I've said before, guys, gun reform in America needs to change, and the loopholes need to stop. I'm in Tennessee, one of the easiest places to get firearms, and I still say it to this day because no one's yet to prove me wrong. It is way too easy in Tennessee to get firearms if you know where to go. Because if you go to the spots where they don't do universal background checks, guess what? With cash and ID, you can buy a gun, you can buy a firearm, you can buy a rifle, almost anything in your heart's desire, really. But at the same time, we don't have enough regulations. We don't have enough, and we don't have enough to where it makes people financially liable. I'll give it to Killer Mike, one of my favorite rappers, because he said it best and he learned from someone else. If you want things to change, you have to attack the money. You have to attack the money. Just like I said, if you want police brutality and shootings to stop, very simple. The police pension fund. There we go. If you take that fund and say anytime an officer is found at fault of unlawful arrest, if he's found at fault of loss of life, if he's found at fault of detainment, extreme arrest or abuse, things of that nature, pay the victims out of that fund. Watch how quickly police shootings, watch how quickly excessive force, watch how quickly all those things stop. Why? Because you attack the money. In the same sense, well, how do we stop shootings? Very simple. You pretty much attack the money. You're not making it completely and utterly impossible to buy guns. And again, as a firearms owner, I'm not against people owning firearms. But as I was trained and I try to tell others, constant training, constant due diligence, constant awareness will not eliminate accidents, but it will severely reduce them. How do we solve for America? Easy. Background checks, making sure someone is mentally and physically fit to own a firearm, making sure that they don't have any red flags in their background, making sure that anytime personal or private sales are going on, that firearms, tobacco, and alcohol are definitely notified. The ATF are notified, that the federal database is notified. Whenever there's a transfer of guns, there always has to be a transfer liability paper form on file. If one is not found, then it should be seen as a felony because you basically put the hands of a deadly weapon into a person we do not know and was not checked about. If we do these things and we limit the loopholes on where guns can be sold and purchased, and if we turn around and really watch out, because the reason why areas like Philadelphia, Chicago are so gun heavy and even though they have the heaviest gun laws, the reason why is because no one talks about it, especially on Fox News, that guns are pretty much piped up there. Where? From the southern regions where the gun laws are less restrictive. That's all I'm saying. There's ways around us to where we can avoid this, to where we shouldn't be at the point where mass shootings are normal. That's a scary part in society. We should not be at a level where mass shootings are normal, where we're desensitized to it. That's a scary freaking thought, actually. But again, I can't be the only one. But speaking of things that people are going to be ticked off about, because again, it's the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court, again, decided that President Joe Biden's student debt loan relief program was unconstitutional. And well, what follows next is exactly what I've been saying all this time.
3-year payment hiatus during COVID, the clock is ticking down to a potential wallet buster. The Supreme Court decision means borrowers must resume paying off their entire student loans starting October 1st.
I planned on saving for my home, possibly starting a family.
30-year-old Sharon Elliott still has $20,000 in loans. Just married, he and his wife must now put their plans on hold.
My wife also has $53,000 student loans as well, so we're both going to be set back.
With interest rates averaging nearly 5%, experts urge borrowers to make more than the minimum payment.
If you make the minimum payment on your student debt, you're going to be carrying that debt for a very long time.
The average student loan, $30,000. Now the Biden administration is developing a slow repayment on-ramp. Borrowers who can't make a payment for the first 12 months would not be penalized. And a plan called SAVE, an income-driven repayment program, would cut the minimum monthly payments in half from 10% of discretionary income to 5%. After 10 years of payments, loans of $12,000 or less would be forgiven.
It's good for the economy. It's good for the country. It's going to be good for you.
Meanwhile, public service workers, including first responders, nurses, and teachers, might also qualify for loan forgiveness.
There are affordable ways to pursue college degrees, and in many professions and in many occupations, you absolutely do need those. You need those credentials to be able to pursue those careers.
College enrollment is actually dropping with fewer students and higher tuition. Financial advisors say in-state schools and two-year community colleges can help make that degree much more affordable.
Actually, it's kind of bullshit, but I'm sorry. I apologize for my use of language. It really is. I can sit there and say the dangers of a heavily conservative Supreme Court. I could sit there and say it all day. The dangers of a heavily conservative-leaning Supreme Court. And do not think for 1 second companies like SoFi, like Advantage, like banks like Chase, those that offer private student loans. You don't think for 1 second they weren't lobbying against this? They were. And at the same time, I would not be surprised because those very same banks were the same ones going to Republicans and saying, we need to stop this. Because it were the Republicans first that actually filed a lawsuit and said, we're doing this on behalf of banks who fear they may not get their interest payments. Think about what I just said. Banks are worried they will not get their interest payments, not the principal, the interest. That alone will tell you off the bat how messed up student loans and how they give them out in America is messed up. Because again, they'll give an 18-year-old. And keep in mind, 18-year-olds or younger going into college, they want to because we were all sold on the fact that in order to have a great career, you had to go to college, you had to get a degree. Most jobs require a degree. So, of course, for a lot of people that do come from income-impacted homes, may not have the funds to go to college because no one has explained every year that tuition has went up and the education has stayed the freaking same. At the same time, what do they always tell you? Don't look at it as a loan. Look at it as an investment in your future. Because at the end of it all, you'll be able to graduate, get a great career with a high-paying job, and be able to pay this back no problem. That was a lie. Because how many of us right now with one or multiple degrees or PhDs or doctorates are experiencing that joy? I guarantee it's less than 2% of you. Not when our minimum wage is still $7.29. Not when you have strikes going left and right, when the answer's always been more pay. Not when, as the journalist said at the end of that publication, that college enrollments are dropping because these kids are getting smarter. And I'm not knocking them for that. Because I'm not gonna lie, I am proud that I am a college graduate. I am proud. It's one of my aside from my son being born, it is one of the greatest accomplishments I hold dear. But if 40-year-old me could go back to 18-year-old me before I signed that college application, maybe I should look somewhere else. That's just being honest. Because for a lot of college graduates, the job market isn't there. It's changing, shifting. And a lot of these jobs now that are out there are not asking for degrees because they realize that the college market is getting smaller, that higher education is starting to become too high for others to really take a loan out and then be stuck in debt. And I, myself, cannot knock them for it. We just saw the story of a couple who just realized that they wanted to start a family. They were looking to start a family, buy a home, but now that each of them have student loans, they're going to be stuck for a period of time. Simply put, having student loan debt halts people. Because that's the thing about that. It's in your credit report. It's in your income to debt ratio. Student loans make up a lot of it. It will affect you buying a home. It will affect you buying a car. It will even affect you getting jobs because jobs check credit reports too. It'll affect that. So imagine that, if you will, that the only people this benefits is the banks. It benefits banks and those that own the banks or have stockholders or have shares in those banks who are salivating. Because keep in mind, the interest didn't pause. It just collected as this whole thing went on. So this is the reason why certain banks and those that offer student loans are salivating right now, because guess what we're going to get? A crap load of interest payments. The principal doesn't even hit yet. And that's the thing about with student loans. It not only will affect the person from moving forward and trying to really enjoy a life instead of having to constantly work and beat the system. You must make more than minimum payments. It's a little hard to when your check hasn't increased, but all your expenses have. Because again, nobody wants to decide between paying for the rent and paying off for student loans. And then, oh crap, I somehow have to make it to the next payday. But again, this is the part where I have a problem with this, because Biden. I'm not saying Biden didn't do enough. I'll still say Biden didn't do enough. He took a small number. He says, I'm only going to knock off 20,000 for every eligible American. Republicans are like, and this is the timeline. Republicans were like, oh, well, you can't do this for all. You can't do this for all of them, just for government loans. Okay, fine. Let's do it for government loans. Well, you can't do it for them either because it's unconstitutional. You don't have the power to do that. There's not a law in the Constitution that says I can't. Well, we're going to sue you because you know what? You're just being unconstitutional. You can't do what you want. The simple fact of the matter is you had a orange and Dorito-laden dictator that wanted to do what he wanted for 4 years, and Republicans didn't say spit. This is the point I'm getting at, guys. If you really look at it, the fact that our system runs on debt. Because if citizens did not have debt, America would be in trouble. That's the system they built it on. That a good number of us have to carry debt in order to spend. We spend and spend and spend, and we never get out of the holes we're in, but we fill up the pockets of those above us and those that have influenced laws and things of that nature. That's the truth. So again, it does hurt my soul because I am one of those ones that have student loan debt, and that I always feel like I will never see the outside of it because that's how it's designed. if I was one of those reporters, I'd ask Biden, so what are you going to do moving forward, you and the Democrats going to do about how student loan debts or how student loans are given to students moving forward? Will you curtail them? Will you put a cap on them? Will you limit how much and how banks can approach them? Because to me, that's predatory lending. It is. Banks are still allowed to go out there and say, well, you can get this and that, and don't worry about it. I know you'll be able to pay that back. They're still allowed to do that. So I asked. So if I was a person, I would ask the president. I would ask the Democrats, what you going to do? Because Republicans, surprisingly enough and scary enough, believe they have a plan. And I know Republicans and plan. I get it. I know. But here's what their plan is. The alternative is called the Federal Assistance to Initiate Repayment, otherwise known as the FAIR Act, which they say allows student loan borrowers to access affordable and burden-free repayment options. Among other changes, it would require the Education Secretary to make at least 12 notifications to borrowers before repayment begins, including options for repayment, the deadline, and more. This would also create an income-driven repayment plan set at 10% of borrowers' discretionary income and would automatically have borrowers repaying based on their income. Interest would be paused, and half of a borrower's payment would go toward the principal for those with adjusted gross income that is less than 300% of the federal poverty line, or $45,675 for people under 65. The FAIR Act would also offer various deferment and forbearance options such as medical residency and active duty military and National Guard duty. Let me tell you something. This is bullshit. And I know, I apologize, because for a lot of people are wondering, wait, income-driven repayment plans, isn't there something? Yes, it's already there. The FAIR Act is nothing more than lip service. It is. I just read off that they're basically saying, oh, well, the Secretary of Education has to notify borrowers 12 times and let them know about the repayment loans. Something that every student loan borrower automatically gets from the owner of their loan. They automatically get it. I can tell you that from experience. Republicans are doing nothing more than, and I always said it best, what exactly are Republicans for? Your plans are literally lip service. At the same time, they do nothing. But they do not care. Republicans do not care about American citizens, and I don't know how many other ways I could say it, because their whole entire FAIR Act is bullshit. It really and truly is. But I know a lot of people out there are going to be like, but Will, I don't want to be stuck paying for somebody else's loan. I didn't decide for them to go to college. I didn't decide, when I went to college, I was able to pay it all. I get the whole list. You had a GI Bill. You could pay for college. You had a mommy and daddy that had money. You had land or something of value you could sell. Good for you. But for all those people that say that kind of stuff, they always miss one crucial element. Everybody is not you. Nobody has the same amount of set circumstances and conditions that allow them to go to college. Some of them simply wanted to go to college because they believed in it, because they believed in their potential. And there's nothing wrong with that. But to sit there but again, if you're complaining about paying, and I say this all the time, this is always my counter argument. If you are complaining about a bunch of people that just simply want to get ahead and breathe a sigh of relief and not have to worry about student loan debt for the rest of their lives, what are you saying about the people that took PPP loans? Yeah, the same, because it's amazing, and I will bring this up every time somebody talks about student loans, because you will get those people out there that will argue all the time. Argue all the effing time. I don't want to pay for someone else's college run. But you have no problem paying for businesses. You wonder why I mentioned the PPP loan? I'm going to tell you why. Because currently, the Paycheck Protection Program has forgiven $757 billion in loans. Currently. Keep in mind, it did stop between the actual program did stop between March 2020 and May 2021, but at the same time, $757 billion $757 billion with a B was forgiven. Where do you think that $757 billion is going to come from? The government ain't going to just write it off. Guess what? You, the taxpayer, will be paying it. And these PPP loans were from businesses that had acumens. They were meant for small businesses. They really were. But a lot of PPP loans were given to corporations, were given by celebrities, by athletes who had the funds to go out, and get traditional loans, who had the capital to leverage with banks to get traditional loans. But they didn't. They took out a PPP loan, got their money, then turned around and didn't have to pay it back. And this is the argument I'll make all the time. It is amazing to me how folks will get so twisted about 20 to 25 plus million Americans who simply want to break from student loan debt, because that is by far the hardest thing to ever get around and get past and finally be able to pay that off. But the simple fact of the matter is, those that are out there, I will say this all the time. If you get angry about the fact that people just simply want to be able to live and not have to work themselves into an early grave, how do you feel about those that got PPP loans and got forgiven and you're footing the bill? You'll be amazed how quiet it gets when you point that out. Because $757 billion versus $1.7 trillion. And that is also the reason why I said, Biden, you can forgive the whole amount if you choose to. But moving right along, guys, speaking of billionaires, Elon Musk's new Twitter restrictions seem to give Zuckerberg another reason to give another shot at trying to control the world.
To take on Elon Musk and launch a rival app to Twitter. The new app called Threads is one of several platforms trying to take advantage of Musk's controversial changes to Twitter's policies. Chief Business Correspondent Rebecca Jarvis has the latest.
The rivalry between tech billionaires Mark Zuckerberg and Elon Musk about to reach a whole new level, with Zuckerberg's Meta expected to unveil a Twitter clone called Threads later this week. The competition already playing out on social. In this bizarre exchange between the two men just days ago, Musk challenging Zuckerberg in a tweet to a physical cage match. Zuckerberg firing back with a screenshot and the caption, "Send me location." And on the heels of a tumultuous week for Twitter, owner Musk announcing, seemingly out of the blue, limits on the number of tweets users could read, leaving many in a foul mood. Twitter in a blog post Tuesday calling the temporary measures necessary to ensure the authenticity of our user base.
Twitter is sort of floundering right now. I think these other companies are sensing that they want to capitalize on this opportunity to kind of step in and create that similar community.
Threads joins a pack of Twitter alternatives, trying to appeal to those frustrated among the platform's estimated 330 million monthly active users. Fledgling app Spill seeing more than 120,000 new users in the last 3 days.
With the changes on some of these other platforms, we absolutely saw an uptick in interest, and I think it's been an opportunity for a lot of people to really discover Spill, be like, hey, okay, this is interesting.
Musk has been ruffling feathers since he took over Twitter, changing content moderation policies, charging users to be verified, and more. In an interview with the BBC in April, the enigmatic billionaire admitting his tenure at Twitter hasn't been easy.
The pain level of Twitter has been extremely high. This hasn't been some sort of party. Were there many mistakes made along the way? Of course. But, all's well that ends well.
So how does this story end? Well, if it goes like Instagram stories, Meta's Snapchat and TikTok clone, expect Threads to quickly rival Twitter. Meta has the money, the workers, and many would argue the will to take on this fight.
So again, it's more like billionaires and millionaires, well, in this case, two tech billionaires, arguing about next. Twitter was going to, social media is becoming the next, really and truly, social media is becoming the next polarization, the monetization, if you will. Because the simple fact of the matter, guys, is that that's exactly what Elon Musk saw when he first wanted to buy Twitter. He saw Twitter as the way of charging verified users, how to market businesses and things of that nature. Even people and again, For all those that don't know, social media is a very lucrative place. I mean, you have kids wanting to be influencers, wanting to be TikTok stars, wanting to be Twitter stars. Can't knock them for it. Why? Because companies have paid buku bucks to the two individuals out there. If your following is great, if you have a 100, a million, 2 million plus followers, you can make money. I can't knock them for it. So what did Zuckerberg decide to do? Zuckerberg decided, hey, Twitter is an unhappy place right now. Let me throw my own thread in. And of course, Spill, another Twitter-like applications are popping up, which just goes to show you, if you got an idea, don't be afraid to go out on it. Because again, a lot of people looked at Twitter the first time and said, so you basically just go on here, you put out a message called a tweet, and other people read it. That's dumb. And yet, 20 plus years later, Twitter sold for billions. I'll say it once, I'll say it again. There is no such thing as a dumb idea, especially if it's lucrative. In the world of social media, give it a shot. You never know. Moving right along, guys, I wanted to cover this story as well because you guys did hear about a week or so back, we said the UPS drivers, along with the Teamsters, are going to go on strike, mainly because of pay and conditions. Because if you've never seen a brown UPS truck, number one, there's no air conditioning in it. Those guys roll with the doors open all the time. They're usually in pants or in shorts, and they're riding in a metal box. And I don't know if you've noticed, it's summertime right now. Especially in the South, we're pretty much on God's hot plate, which means we're, seeing daily temperatures of 90 and above with high-ass humidity is normal. But again, I'm sitting in a house with air conditioning. I'm not in a truck for 8 to 10 hours out the day, in 90 outside, but maybe 110 inside a vehicle that I'm hot, I'm dehydrated, I'm moving boxes. The dangers for sunstroke and heat deprivation are high. So UPS was moving. The drivers UPS said, "Hey, we want air-conditioned trucks." Shouldn't be a hard thing, right? But no, that's where we are right now. Is that they're actually in the middle of between UPS Teamsters, the UPS drivers and the Teamsters are basically in the contract negotiations, or I should say was, because honestly, guys, those contract negotiations have broken down. They said that, of course, if you listen to both sides, quote unquote, union officials said that UPS walked away from the bargaining table after presenting an acceptable offer, specifically in regard to the economic package. UPS said, despite UPS's historic offer that builds on our industry-leading pay, that the Teamsters were the one who abandoned negotiations. We have not walked away, and the union has a responsibility to remain at the table. So again, the end of the contract is on July 31st, where the UPS workers have already organized a strike. And I don't blame them, because this is the thing I keep saying all the time, that we are going to see more and more of workers going on strike, because we have yet to solve the labor pricing problem in America that it's always been, and we're starting to see this, because you see countries like China, you see countries that have mass production, but the pay is low. We see it all the time. Matter of fact, isn't there a company called Shein that's in trouble right now because they approve the working conditions in China? Approve the working conditions. The same place where Apple and Nike shoes are manufactured and sold here in the U.S. And trust me, you don't want to see the working conditions there, nor the pay that the workers are given. But it seems America has figured out China and how they do things, because I'll keep pointing this all the time, that our minimum wage is still $7.29 an hour, that everything has gone up at your paycheck. Food is at least 25% more than what it used to be. Gas, electronics, video games, other devices, even your utilities have all went up. And yet at the same time, your paycheck hasn't. And it's starting to affect businesses. I have been saying that. UPS and FedEx are not, and trust me, you don't want UPS and FedEx to fall off. I'm still waiting for the United States Postal Service. I'm still waiting for them to go on strike, honestly. I am waiting for all of logistical services in the U.S. to go on strike, and watch how quickly you get everybody's attention when delivery service halts. You'll get everybody's attention quickly, but this can all be solved, especially on the UPS side. Give them air-conditioned trucks, give them more pay. But that's the thing about it when you're dealing with these corporations. This is why I sit there and say the hardest thing for these corporations to get is the fact of the matter is it's easy to solve. If you pay the workers more, well, what about our bonuses? You will still get them. See, this is the thing that corporations and rich people won't say. If you pay people more, there's always the fear that they will get less at the table. But here's the thing about rich people and corporations. If they pay people more, they will not go broke tomorrow. It's like the fast food analogy. If tomorrow McDonald's turned around and started paying their workers starting at $24 an hour, that the price of the Big Mac would be $10 to $12 for a meal. Have you been to McDonald's recently? Forget the dollar menu. The dollar menu was a thing in the past. $20 doesn't get you nowhere at fast food restaurants anymore. McDonald's especially when you're feeding more than just yourself. I mean, you've got like a family of 4, let alone more than that. But that's the point I'm getting at. That the price of the American dollar, when put in the hands of an American citizen, isn't spit anymore. But at the same time, deciding not to pay the American workers more leads to the fact that you will be paying more in the end. Because if you haven't noticed, out of all these strikes, none of these strikes have ended to where the workers have accepted less for the same power. They've gotten more. At the same time, if I am one of the biggest logistical companies out there of the world, and right now you have a bunch of your drivers that are about to go on strike at the end of the month, if I was the person running the show, pay them and get Mr. Cool installed in each of those trucks yesterday. But again, we'll see. But unions work. I have said it before, and I will say it again. And you can quote me on this. There is no such thing as corporate loyalty. The days of working for the same company for 10 to 20 to 30 years and expecting that same level of respect and dedication from them is gone. It's gone. Simply put, do what is best for you. But at the same time, if I was UPS, pay the folks before you have a bigger problem at the end of the month. But our last story, guys, before we get to our feel good segment, is again with California, which I had a little bit of hope. Because in California, there was a panel that was looking into reparations for Black people in the state of California. I thought it was a good idea. I thought it was a great way to keep the conversation going. I still believe that reparations should be held for slavery. But yeah, a task force was set together to look into how to get reparations for Black people who are descendants of slaves. Now, looking at this, the task force proposed more than 100 statewide policies to address generations of discrimination and racial disparities. But the report does not show any monetary compensation for the harms of slavery and systemic racism. Which basically says, still, the report does not issue a concrete dollar amount owed to people who are able to demonstrate that they are the descendant of either an enslaved African-American in the United States or a free African-American living in the United States prior to 1900. This 500-page report that was released last year was basically the catalyst for this. But the thing about it is, guys, you can go look this up yourself, but realistically, the fact that there's not a monetary amount suggested goes to show you, for the simple fact of the matter, that America refuses to acknowledge that, hey, we should not be paying for this. Now, a lot of people out there are saying, well, why do we keep bringing up reparations if they're never going to pay for it? Well, because America's had a history of it. America has had a history of paying reparations, just not to Black people. And I'll prove it. Case in point. This is actually a timeline that I'm showing here that when reparations were paid. I can start with 1924, the Pueblo Lands Act of 1924, where Congress authorized the establishment of the Pueblo Lands Board to adjudicate land title disputes along with the payment of $1,300,000 to the Pueblos for the land that they lost. The Shoshones were paid over $6 million in 1927. In 1934, they authorized $2 million a year for appropriations for the acquisition of land for Indians, except for the state of Oklahoma and the territory of Alaska until 1936. In total, $5.5 million was appropriated for 400,000 acres of land. In the 1950s, the Navajo Hopi Rehabilitation Act was passed, where $88,570,000 over 10 years was paid for a program befitting the Navajo and the Hopi. In 1968, in the court case of the Tlingit and Haida Indians of Alaska versus the United States, the plaintiff tribes won a judgment of $7.5 million. I can keep going. I mean, I can literally keep going. Where 1971, around 1 billion plus 44 million acres of land was paid to the Alaskan Natives Claims Settlement Act. 1980, 105 million was paid to the Sioux of South Dakota for seizure of their land. 1986, 32 million were paid per the 1836 treaty for the Ottawas of Michigan. 1988, the Civil Liberties Act. Well, Ronald Reagan signed a bill providing $1.2 billion and an apology to each of the approximately living 60,000 Japanese Americans who have been in internment camps since World War II. Additionally, 12,000 in apology were given to 450 Ugandans for internment during World War II, and a $6 million trust fund was created for their communities. You cannot, and again, that's just 1988. To sit there and say that we do not deserve reparations is bullshit. And I apologize for my language, but it's bullshit. The simple fact of the matter, guys, is that Japanese Americans were put in internment camps during World War II. At the same time, $1.2 billion, that's $20,000 per person, and an apology. And then a $6.4 million trust fund was created for their communities, for Ugandans. I'm waiting for the bullshit. I'm waiting for the bullshit. Because when it comes down to it, like I said, we can keep going. That was just tips of the iceberg. I mean, Google can be like what I say, guys, Google can be your best friend. Why can it be your best friend? Because if you look up historical timeline of reparations where the U.S. has paid out, you will find the CVS of receipts. And I just read some of them. Because if I went down that list, I would still be going for the next couple of hours. Why? Because for the simple fact of the matter, guys, that they have no excuse. That when it comes down to it, they do not want to pay, even though that they should. Even though those who are part of that task force should give a number. Because you know why? Because if you don't believe, and I say this all the time, that one race got ahead of another, one race got a 400-year head start on economics and progression, while the other race is still trying to catch up. If that doesn't deserve reparations, I don't know what does. But I'm just pointing that out. We can pay everybody else reparations except Black people. And yet, I wonder why. But moving right along, guys, we're going to go into our feel-good segment. That's usually how the Frack got here. We do cover a lot of things that are doom and gloom. Sometimes make you lose your faith in humanity. But hey, we're still recovering from the 4th of July. And it is the middle of the week, which is hump day, which is leading us to Thursday, which is Friday, which is Thursday. Which is Friday. That was a terrible segment. We do have a nice feel-good story, guys, that comes along. Hopefully it'll put some good vibrations, because Lord knows we need that right now, about graduation. Now, there are people that are graduating, and of course, kudos to you for those that have graduated college and high school, and even middle, and even going into elementary school. Kindergartens, y'all deserve that too. But this particular graduate had a friend that decided to do a little something different in celebration of their recent achievement. And I can't lie, I wish this was done for me too.
Back in December, after I had defended, my college roommate, Elizabeth, reached out to me and was like, hey, I would love to celebrate you. This is such a hard thing. You worked on it for a really long time. I was thinking about a gift registry. And my first instinct was like, oh, no. That's too much. It felt like I was, going to be telling people to reward me for this work. And she kind of had to massage it a little bit. She was like, you're not doing it. I'm going to be doing it. You worked really hard for this. You have put your entire life on hold for this research. The work that you're doing is something that could potentially help other people. She's like, oh, make the list. And I was like, yeah, I'll do it. And then I wouldn't do it. We want to celebrate you. You need to sit down. You need to make a list of things that would bring you joy, that you need, but also things that you would really like. And so that's what I did. I sat down, I made a list. She sent it to everyone who had RSVP'd to my dissertation defense. She was very intentional about I want to make sure that you are celebrated in ways that are meaningful to you. One of the things that has gotten the most reaction has been about how women should be celebrated beyond marriage and babies. We were in conversation about how often women are thought about in relationship to other people, whether it's as a caretaker, as a mother, or as a wife, and how it's not necessarily a reward or anything like that, but it is an acknowledgement that your life is changing. People want to be a part of that community and support you. And so for me, my life was changing because I was finishing my doctorate, and she was like, this is a seminal point in your life, and I want people to be able to support you in community regardless. You can have great change and great fulfillment brought to you if you never have children, if you never get married.
I'm not against that. That was a very great thing that her friend did for her, was to basically do a gift registry, because usually when you see gift registries, same way, it's either for, announcement of a pregnancy or things of that nature, but not for college graduates. But I thought that was cool that, we should, like we said, we shouldn't only reward women for marriage and babies. And I was like, you know what? You're exactly right. We should be able to support people. And I've said it, and I have actually said it many times, as I usually say as I wrap up this show, is that we do need to be more about supporting others. Again, if you know somebody that's graduating, or someone that's starting a business, someone that's starting a new, starting out with an idea, or just doing something different, and they're putting their heart and soul into it, and being a friend, just support them. Sometimes, like I said before, social media, it doesn't take much to share what they're doing if they make it public, and if they, give the okay to. You don't want to share something that they may not be ready for. But the point I'm being is, you can be a great friend. You can share it. You can share that. You can promote it on your page. You can give, if you can give or be monetary and giving, then do so. But we need to be more about sharing, uplifting others. As I've said at the end of this podcast, be more about sharing, be more about uplifting others, be more about doing things outside of being negative. When we, instead of trying to hold the door and be a gatekeeper, bust it open and actually help others get ahead. Unify. That's all I'm saying. That's all you got to do. Support them the same way you would support Beyonce if she knew you was breathing. I'm just saying, I do it all the time. Why can't you? But that's going to do it for this podcast, guys. I think you all for liking, for poking your head in, for sharing it, for letting people know about it. From the bottom of my heart, I appreciate it. Some shameless plugging pause before we do get out of here. Shout out to my boy Vaughn at Big BZA Dot, where you can find him, BBZA Dot, on all social media, his YouTube page with plenty of beats. And if you are interested in buying beats from him, definitely check him out, as he is working on new beats for the show. I can't wait to actually put those to work. But definitely check him out, Big BZA Dot, on all social media. As for myself, guys, you can find me BlackFox447 on all social media. I usually do reviews on everything that I watch, that I read, that I play, gym stuff because, sometimes do a couple push-ups. At the same time, guys, I'm going to make the link at the bottom so a wee bit bigger for you guys to see. If you copy and paste that into your browser, it'll take you to the link tree. That's the YouTube and Facebook groups for all of my podcasts, How the Frack We Got Here, Get Bit, and of course, off on this podcast. Like, share, and subscribe. I would certainly appreciate it. And let me know what you guys thought of everything we discussed, because I do want to keep the conversation going, but keep it about the conversation. No pot shots, no being petty. The whole idea of it all is to continue the conversation. That's how it works. At the same time, guys, all of our podcasts can be found wherever podcasts can be heard or watched, or both, depending on if you want some ugly mug or not. But definitely download us. What I mean by that is Google, Apple and Google Podcasts, and Spotify and Stitcher, and YouTube. Like I said, trying to branch out. And also, we're also on Opulence Radio and Always Record TV as well. So that being said, guys, as I wrap this up, again, as the heat is on, please be very careful. Please make sure you have water. Please make sure you're hydrating. Please don't push it, because right now the sun is like the sun in Super Mario Brothers 3. It is out to take us out. Again, be safe, be smart, be covered, be hydrated. That's all I'm asking for. The last thing I'll say about how the Frack We Got Here, guys, is all about staying informed. We are not trying to reinvent the wheel. We are simply giving you all the information, allow you to make up your own mind, but we do provide a lot of perspective that goes along with it. We do a lot better as society once we're informed. We're progressive. We move forward. We try to right the wrongs of our past by making decisions now that we should have done back then, like electing our first black person to the Supreme Court, black woman Supreme Court, electing our first black woman to the Federal Board of Governors, electing our first black woman as the National Cybersecurity Defense Advisor. All great things. When we don't learn from history, we are doomed to repeat it. That's why we keep asking ourselves, why does everything go up by my paycheck? Why are we electing different officials but still the same old game in Congress? And most importantly, how the Frack We Got Here. Thank you all for watching, guys. Take care of yourselves and each other, and we will all get through